Well, hey guys, as a dermatologist and over the years of creating content here on YouTube, I come across so many ingredient fear-mongering campaigns, smear campaigns against random ingredients in skincare products. Whether it be people claiming that a skincare ingredient is pore clogging, cancer causing, harmful to reproductive health, endocrine disrupting. I mean, it runs the gamut. When I first started on YouTube, there was a lot of fear-mongering around parabens. That's still there, but a lot of it has died down. They've focused on other preservatives to fearmonger, DMDM hydantoin. I debunked that a couple of years ago. They fearmonger around sunscreen ingredients like oxybenzone, octocrylene. I've debunked these in prior videos as well. You see it a lot in skincare, but honestly, I think where it really gets a lot of traction and leverage is in food. For example, you will see a lot of marketing around gluten-free, when in reality it's like, okay, unless you have celiac disease or a confirmed allergy to gluten, then there's like no reason to fear gluten. Of course, they need to label the product as gluten-free to alert those people with those issues, but there are movements to cut out gluten, and it's just like, why? The theme that I see in a lot of these fear smear campaigns against certain ingredients is, one theme in particular is kind of just overall misrepresenting the science on that ingredient. For example, they will point out that a certain ingredient is cancer causing, but they will fail to really appreciate that the study that they have come across was an animal study where they used a really high dose of an ingredient in an animal model. It doesn't reproduce what you would ever be exposed to in real world conditions just by applying it to the skin. It's not the poison, it's the dose. And in these animal studies, they're putting a really large dose into an animal model and it caused problems. And that's not the reality when we're talking about stuff in skincare. Another case of misrepresenting animal studies are those pore clogging databases. I haven't seen those in a while. People haven't mentioned those in a while, but for a while there, they were like ingredient databases where they would rank ingredients based on their pore clogging potential. And it was all based off of old, antiquated rabbit ear model studies that don't really translate to human use. For example, one of them I'm always getting questions on is isopropyl myristate, but it's not actually pore clogging. In fact, isopropyl myristate is actually what is in tretinoin, an acne treatment. So it's not, again, it's not the poison, it's the dose, and it's also the route. And when it comes to skincare products, you have to factor in skincare formulation overall, how the product overall is formulated. It makes a huge difference in terms of penetration of ingredients, how they're going to influence your skin and your skin biology. The other theme I see a lot is fear-mongering around ingredients that are perceived to be chemical or synthetic or man-made as opposed to natural. This natural fallacy is just that, a fallacy. Many times, products and ingredients, medications, they are derived from natural ingredients. They are modified to make them safer for human use. Many prescription medications come from plants, flowers, and they're modified to remove harmful pieces and parts that would otherwise cause serious harm, and therefore you're left with the beneficial component. That's the case with a lot of skincare ingredients too. They're oftentimes derived from 100% all natural ingredients, which if you put on the skin can be very irritating. They're modified. In today's video, I want to call your attention to an ingredient that I never ever see fear-mongered, but based on the ways in which ingredients are fear-mongered, you could see how they can make a case against this ingredient. And by showcasing you this, you'll see how ridiculous it is to fear ingredients and to pour over ingredient lists. What is the ingredient? Wait for it. It is the deadly offender, H2O. Yes, water. Believe it or not, water is a chemical. And water can be treated, it can be processed, and by treated I mean it can be filtered, treated to remove any potential pathogens. You've got distilled water. I mean, so it's processed in a man-made fashion. It's not as though water in your skincare products is just like scooped up out of the stream and poured into products. It's purified to keep you safe, right? I mean, we want that. But based on how they fear-monger around ingredients, like that level of processing, why is it not getting the same fear-mongering hype? All right, another thing that I see a lot is misrepresentation of conditions caused by said ingredient. You can develop an allergy or an irritation to any ingredient. What problems can you develop from water? Super duper rare, but you actually can develop an adverse skin reaction to water. It's called aquagenic urticaria. It's a type of hives. Super rare. What happens is you get a rash of little hives ranging anywhere from 1 to 3 millimeters, focused around like the hair follicles, the pore, and surrounding those little hives will be a maybe a centimeter or so, a patch of redness. Very itchy, they can tingle, burn, very, very uncomfortable, and make the person want to itch a lot. Happens when the skin comes in contact with water. And I know what you're thinking, like, whoa, how the heck can this happen when our body is pretty much made of water? We have a ton of water in our body. How can we develop a reaction to water? It's so natural, right? Honestly, we really don't know why these people develop this. And it's not just that they're like allergic to water or anything. It's specific when water comes in contact with their skin. It's thought maybe that there's something in your oils or in the top of your skin that triggers the release of histamine from cells in your immune system for some people and the water allows for maybe penetration or greater access of said antigen. Honestly though, we really don't know what causes this problem. It is super debilitating. We're not just talking about a rash that comes about when you come in contact with like water-based products, but these people get this rash when they bathe, when they cry, and when they sweat. It's really debilitating. This type of rash, it's called a physical urticaria. It's in the family of hives. And for any other physical urticaria, you would take measures to avoid the trigger. How are you going to avoid bathing? How are you going to go your whole life without having any tears? Even eating and drinking, liquid can get on your skin. How are you going to avoid that? It can trigger hives. For these people, when they're exposed to water, the hives come about usually in about 20 minutes. And then when they get away from the water, the hives typically resolve in about 30 to 60 minutes. It's, again, super rare. Most cases are not life-threatening, but in some cases, the symptoms can be accompanied by like shortness of breath, wheezing, difficulties with breathing. So you can see right here, this rare condition. It's happened in like maybe 60 people. Super rare. You can see how based on the way these fear-mongering campaigns work, you could really start making an argument against water, that it can cause you to be short of breath, wheeze, have a painful, miserable, itchy rash. How is this condition diagnosed? Well, clinically, it's diagnosed with the patient's history, like anytime they come in contact with water or cry or sweat, they get hives, and then we do a special test to provoke it. Basically, take a cloth and soak it in room temperature water and apply it to the skin for about 20 minutes, remove it, and wait to see if they get hives there. If they develop hives, that is a positive reaction. The reason it needs to be room temperature is there are other types of physical urticaria that can be triggered by exposure to cold. It's called cold urticaria. Or there are other types that are triggered by anything that's going to release the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. It's called a cholinergic urticaria, and that includes warm liquids on the skin or anything that brings heat to the skin, like sweat, again, so it kind of looks a little similar to aquagenic urticaria, or spicy foods, exercise, looks kind of similar but different triggers. These people have to avoid contact with water, although that is kind of impossible. So they're put on medications to help control this. Antihistamines like fexofenadine, otherwise known as Allegra, cetirizine, otherwise known as Zyrtec, or loratadine, otherwise known as Claritin. They're put on those sometimes in conjunction with other medications in the antihistamine family. As part of their skincare, they need to use petrolatum. It can be helpful because it prevents the penetration of water into the skin, and that is what is the trigger for their symptoms. So Vaseline is like their skincare product that is helpful for them. In some cases, they have to undergo phototherapy because, as I've told you guys in other videos, UV radiation suppresses the immune system, so it can weaken that signal from the immune cells in the skin to release that histamine when done in controlled doses for phototherapy. So that's aquagenic urticaria, a real life medical condition that you can develop from contact with water. Super, super rare. But they take these very rare scenarios and they use them as a way to evoke fear in the general public. Just because there are certain medical conditions that are triggered by exposure to certain ingredients, whether they be in food or skincare products, it's not a reason necessarily for the general public to go avoiding said ingredient. Now, of course, there are certain ingredients in skincare products that are more likely to cause skin problems for people, especially those who have very sensitive skin or easily get irritation. For example, fragrance is commonly irritating for many people, and it can aggravate certain skin conditions. But there are many people who use fragrance in their skincare products their entire lives and never have any problem with it. And then there are hydroxy acids like glycolic acid and lactic acid, safe to use, safe to apply on the skin, but they can be irritating, and sometimes you are advised to avoid those when using other topical medications because the two together can be extra irritating. But that's not to say that those ingredients are bad. In fact, they're beneficial, as I've outlined in my videos on those. So getting back to the it's not the poison, it's the dose argument, when it comes to water, you can drown in water, right? But nobody is worried about drowning from their moisturizer. All that to say, you can make an argument against any ingredient, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to. It doesn't make sense to start these campaigns against certain ingredients, whether it be hyaluronic acid. I see a lot of people starting to worry about hyaluronic acid. Sure, some people can develop an irritation to hyaluronic acid containing products, but you go on a crusade to remove all hyaluronic acid from your skincare. It just doesn't make any sense. Hyaluronic acid has been used in skincare products. It's used in topical medicinals for wound healing, and now all of a sudden people want to start fear-mongering around hyaluronic acid or sodium hyaluronate. It doesn't make sense. Unless the ingredient is commonly irritating and you're dealing with irritation or you have irritation-prone skin, then it's like, what are we even trying to accomplish here? Even water can be problematic. Water can kill you. Water can cause aquagenic urticaria, rarely. If you take water into the lab and put it in cells in a dish, they will die. Yeah, you can't culture cells in water. They will die. They will literally die. But that doesn't make it toxic. Water is a chemical. Water is heavily processed in our skincare products, by man-made means. It's filtered, purified, what have you. Hopefully, as you're watching this video, you see my point that you can make a case against any ingredient. It doesn't make sense to. Any ingredient, even simple water, can end up causing a problem for somebody out there. But I'm also making this video because it would not surprise me if the next time I open up my TikTok app, it's going to show me people saying how we should be avoiding water-based products. I noticed that a lot of these I call them fear and smear campaigns against certain ingredients. They're often started by lobbying groups who have other financial interests. They influence consumers by spreading false information about said ingredient, and then that creates a consumer demand in the skincare market. As easy as that would be to blame skincare brands for making products that they hype up as paraben free or whatever, at the same time you have to empathize with them a bit because there's obviously a consumer demand there, and that's the whole point of skincare brands, is to sell products to people to make money. So if there's a demand for water-free products, you bet your bottom dollar Vaseline stock is going to skyrocket, and people are going to be demanding water-free products if that were ever to happen. And I've outlined the arguments right here for the smear and fear campaigns to come after water next. Studying ingredients on products, while it can be helpful in kind of informing you what you're going to purchase based on certain ingredients that are known to do certain things to benefit the skin or to address certain skin issues, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to worry about ingredients causing problems that you don't have. Unless you have a confirmed problem to an ingredient, then don't fear skincare products. They are safe. I mean, unless you're ingesting large quantities of them, putting them up your nose, inhaling massive amounts of them, like, they're safe to put on the skin. They do go through quite a bit of safety testing. All right, guys, so I hope this video was helpful and enjoyable to you all. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. But if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.